are some guy, Uncle Bruce. You are the biology quantum guy that has a lot of really good information for us. And thank you so much for that. And we actually did have a question that just came in, and it's sort of maybe need just your opinion about this, because you talk about evolution and how evolution is not necessarily just this long, slow, gradual process of change, but that they start and stop points where big things happen and change, and that maybe we've gone through this before. So the question here, Uncle Bruce, has to do with ancient civilizations, and
Yes.
the suggestion that maybe we have actually been at this point before. And some people in the question, they talk about how the idea that civilizations have died out in the past, but we're actually moving towards this area where we might go through a spontaneous evolution. So do you think maybe a spontaneous evolution of sorts has happened in the past?
Well, Alex, this is a very important question because our history reveals what our future can be. If we see a pattern, then we can use that pattern to understand where we're going. There is a pattern, and this is a pattern that separates us from Darwinian theory, which says evolution was just a very slow, progressive change of organisms, imperceptible over millions and millions of years of slight gradual changes that took us from a primitive bacteria to a human being. The reality of that continuous process has been successfully challenged. And there's a more relevant theory, and it's called punctuated equilibrium. And what it reveals is that life builds up to a status of equilibrium and everything is harmony and balance and thriving. And then some punctuation occurs that all of a sudden shakes up the system, and it all comes back together again in a different form. In my perception, if I tried to give an analogy to this for the average person such as myself, there's this childhood thing that many of us played with called Etch-a-Sketch. Etch-a-Sketch is this like little flat box with like a screen, like a television screen and a dial. And if you turn the dial, a pen scratches the surface and then makes images. And then you can create a very complex image. And then all you have to do is shake the Etch-a-Sketch and all of a sudden it's erased and you can start over again. Well, our evolution is virtually Etch-a-Sketch, meaning nature builds up an entire structure. A punctuation causes the Etch-a-Sketch to shake, crashes the picture, and then starts a new picture again. This has already happened 5 times on the planet. So that the results of this is not a suggestion or hypothesis. This is actually an established fact that life was thriving, and 5 different times this wonderful thriving mass of life on the planet was affected by something that caused it to be wiped out, and evolution started all over again. 5 times this happened. The last time was what, 60 some million years ago when the dinosaurs were here. Hey, the environment was thriving. It was that big jungle, just like Jurassic Park, you know, it was thriving, everything, all the big animals, everything was going on. But apparently a comet hit somewhere in Mexico, and that comet was so big that the ripples of the effect of that comet went around the globe and upended the environment. And these are called mass extinctions. 5 times this has happened, and somewhere between 70 and 90% of life gets wiped out. And then it starts over again. So has this happened? Yeah, it's happened. It's happened 5 times. But more importantly, at this very moment, we are in the 6th mass extinction. We are losing species of organisms on this planet faster than many of the previous 5 mass extinctions. And the part that why it's relevant to our discussion at this moment is that human behavior is responsible for the current version of an extinction. Just to let you know, in 1970, they took a survey of how many animals were on the planet. 2 years ago, they redid the same survey, and the population of animals in 1970 has been reduced 62%. Essentially, only 1/3 of the animals are left on this planet compared to how many animals were there in 1970. We are in the experiencing of a mass extinction. And so the idea is that we are the ones that have to change this particular activity. And to give you an idea that this is not the first time human civilization has experienced this. Many series of human civilizations have been here and disappeared. Disappeared? Like, where the hell did they go? And the answer is this. Is of a civilization that was uncovered in Turkey called Göbekli Tepe. Göbekli Tepe was a vast civilization at that time, very large number of people living in Turkey in this area. And what's important is they were there up until about 10,000 years ago. You go, what do you mean? A vast civilization was here, and then about 10,000 years ago it disappeared. And you go, well, wait, doesn't our history tell us that civilization only appeared about 5,000 BC? And I go, yeah, that's pretty much incorrect history, because now we recognize there have been civilizations that have been here and have gone. And then you might say, well, what happened to the civilization in Göbekli Tepe? Well, we don't know exactly what happened, but I can tell you something very, very totally interesting. And that is, well, many civilizations get lost in erosion and get buried by dirt and dust over time, and we dig them up in archaeological finds. Göbekli Tepe was a city that was manually buried, a whole city that was manually buried. They took the dirt and the rocks, they filled up the buildings, layered over the whole thing. And so current day archaeologists, when they saw this area, it was just like a smooth hill. It was when they started digging underneath, they found all these buildings. Then you go, oh my God, there was a civilization here 5,000 years before we even thought civilization started. Massive enough to build this thing. And then you might say, well, what happened to that civilization? Okay, we don't really know, but guess what? In looking at the time scale of the civilization, it turned out that this civilization disappeared at one of the last major upheavals of climate change. And you go, what do you mean climate change? Well, climate change is periodic. The Earth goes through ice ages and then warm ages, and ice ages and warm ages, periodic. I go, why is it relevant? What happened to Göbekli Tepe? It disappeared at a period of climate change. You say, why should it have disappeared? And the answer is this: where is Göbekli Tepe? It's in Turkey. I go, and what's the environment like? And I go, it's pretty much scrub desert. Now, I go, but wait, if 10,000 years ago there was a thriving civilization, where'd they get their food? And the point was simply this: climate change took an area that was originally rich and growing crops in Turkey and has since turned it into a scrub desert. People couldn't live there anymore. Why? You couldn't grow any food. You couldn't survive there. Where'd the city go? They left. Why? Climate change. I go, relevance? Welcome to today's version of climate change. Will it change civilization? 100%. Why? Where are you going to get your food from? What do you mean, Lipton? I go, oh, no, you get it. You see, if climate change occurs, you cannot depend on agriculture. Why? Well, is the new climate, is it going to rain? Oh, it's not going to rain. It's going to turn into a desert. Oh, well, then guess what? You can't live here anymore. And this is what the issue is about climate change. Well, people think climate change, whatever peripheral issue, it's like, no. Fundamental problem with climate change, it changes agriculture. How can you grow food in an environment whose climate will change to such an extent it can't grow the food? I mean, California just dealt with about 8 years of drought and affecting the system so much that farmers got rid of livestock because they couldn't grow the feed for them. Well, the livestock made the dairy that made California the big dairy state that it is. California provides 50% of the food for the United States. Yeah, and what happens in a drought? Nothing is growing. They cut down the nut trees, they cut down all kinds of things. Why? There's not enough water. Well, we had a good season this last winter. We've got some water. But the point is this: if it doesn't rain, California can go back. It was a desert before. The Central Valley, which is the breadbasket of the United States, not that long ago was a complete desert. And then climate change allowed it to now manifest food. And guess what? Climate change is now occurring, which alters that ability. So what happened to these ancient civilizations? They disappeared. Any reason why? Well, at least one, Göbekli Tepe, which is 5,000 years even before we thought civilization started. That advanced civilization disappeared when? Climate change. Why? Go there to that site today and realize, where are you going to get the food? And the answer is, you cannot sustain that big combination of culture and buildings and everything in a world where there's no food. Are we facing it today? Absolutely. Has it happened before? Absolutely. Why is it relevant? If it's happened before, it reveals a pattern. If there's a pattern, then there's an insight into what's happening. And what's happening now is a period of climate change, which is going to change the basis of civilization and could lead to a massive extinction of animals whose environments are going to change so profoundly that they are no longer going to be supported. And so we're in an upheaval. Where's it going to end? I don't know, but the idea is this. We are not going backwards. Why is that important? Because people think, oh, if we just fix this, everything will return back to normal. I go, no, it's not returning back to where it was. It's going somewhere else. But why is this relevant? If we put all our effort into thinking that we can take this backwards, not make America great again, make environment great again, we're fooling ourselves. What we should be doing now, and it is happening, is how can we use technology that will allow us to survive in spite of climate change? So look at all the new kind of agriculture, inside agriculture, growing things in big buildings, food going indoors. Why? Because I can control the environment. I can't control it outside. And if we wait for that control to come back, it may never come back. So let's move forward, saying this change is happening. This change is going to affect civilization. Will I be able to survive? And the answer is, will we create the technology that will allow us to survive in an environment that is undergoing rapid change? That is where the answer to will we survive will come from. If we don't, then in a few thousand years from now, people will dig up and go, hey, they had some buildings back there. What happened to all those people? And then we'll be Göbekli Tepe Part 2. So we are going through this process right now. It is not unusual. It happens all the time in the history of the planet. So it's not like, oh, some freak event is happening. It's just a normal event. Will we survive? Depends if we learn the lesson from the other civilizations that didn't. And so where are we today? Working it out. We're working it out. Is it going to work? I have very, very, very a big percentage in the positive outcome of this. Why? Because a global civilization will be able to answer this problem. And with the development of the internet, we are founding the big global civilization called humanity, where all humans are part of this one living system. And when we collect all the consciousness of 8 billion people, guess what? All the answers to the future are already here. So I'm very positive. Happy boy, Bruce.